The sun bled low across the plains, dying in rust-colored streaks over a vast stretch of brittle land. Sagebrush rattled in the evening wind like bones in a gambler's pocket, and the sky, wide and watching, turned the color of an old bruise. The ranch sat alone, a weather-beaten square of timber and iron framed by empty earth. No neighbors, no passers-by, just a man and the silence he had chosen. He stood on the porch, one boot planted on the step, the other on a warped board that groaned with memory. His face was lined like a riverbed gone dry, shadowed beneath the wide brim of a hat bleached by 10 summers too many. He chewed on a sliver of tobacco and watched the distant ridge where smoke curled up, thin and uncertain, against the horizon. It wasn't chimney smoke. Not the kind a man makes while boiling coffee or baking beans. This smoke drifted wrong, black, oily, angry. He spat. A hawk turned lazy circles overhead. Nothing burned out here, without a reason. He considered riding in the opposite direction. That would have been the easy thing. After all, it wasn't his fire. Wasn't his business. But that little knot of something, some part of him still tangled up in duty or guilt or both, twisted in his gut and turned his boots toward the stable. The horse snorted as he saddled her. She was as grizzled and quiet as he was, and just as worn out. He whispered to her, not because she needed it, but because he hadn't said a word to another soul in 4 days. When the saddle cinched tight, he mounted slow, his joints crackling like brush in a fire, and pointed her toward the ridge. The land between the ranch and the smoke was cruel, all sharp grass and hidden rock. Coyotes watched from the shadows. The sun dropped below the edge of the world, and the sky cooled to indigo. He rode without haste. If it was already over, there was no need to rush. If it wasn't, he didn't expect to change the ending. He found the girl in a dry gully just south of the fire. Her skin was dark with soot and blood, her arms scraped raw by mesquite. She lay on her side like a thrown doll, barely breathing. One ankle was twisted, and her right hand clutched a sharp, broken stick, more instinct than defense. A horse's hoof print pressed deep into the ground near her ribs. Someone had ridden hard and close. Someone had left her behind. She was Apache, maybe 12, maybe 14. Her hair hung in matted ropes, her dress torn and burned at the hem. But it was the mark on her wrist that stopped him cold. A circle, charred black, branded into her flesh with a jagged line through the center. Thief. He dismounted slowly, his movements broad and visible. She watched him, pupils wide, face slack with exhaustion and pain. He didn't speak. Words would only frighten her. Instead, he crouched and set down his canteen between them, then stepped back. She didn't reach for it, didn't blink, just breathed, shallow, uneven, like someone waiting for the next blow. A buzzard cried out somewhere behind him. The world was shrinking. Finally, she moved. Not to the canteen, but to roll painfully onto her side, away from him. A motion of pure defiance. Or maybe shame. He didn't know which, and he didn't ask. Instead, he gathered her up without ceremony. She was featherlight, all bones and burnt cloth, her breath ragged against his collar. She didn't fight, not even a flinch. He laid her across the saddle and walked beside the horse, reins in one hand, his other arm steadying her body. The journey back felt longer. The wind picked up, whistling through the dry grass, whispering things he didn't want to hear. He tried not to think of what would happen if someone saw him bringing an Apache girl home. Not a soul in 50 miles would ask questions. They'd just hang the both of them and sleep well after. When he reached the cabin, he set her down gently on the cot near the fireplace. She stirred, lips twitching, but said nothing. He stoked the coals until firelight painted the walls in gold. Her wrist caught the glow, and the branded flesh glistened wet and angry. Infection had already started. He unrolled his canvas kit, doused a rag with whiskey, and paused. Her eyes were on him now, narrow and sharp. The exhaustion was there, but behind it, fury. No tears. No gratitude. Just fire. He dipped the rag and pressed it to her wrist. She screamed once, loud and high and sudden, and then bit it back, teeth clenched tight, body trembling like a cornered Mustang. He didn't apologize. There was no room in this world for comfort. Only doing what had to be done. She passed out soon after. He cleaned the rest of her wounds in silence, bound her wrist in fresh cloth, and dragged the old rocking chair closer to the fire. Outside, the coyotes had grown quiet. The wind had changed. As she slept, he studied her face. There was something familiar in it, not the features, but the set of them. Determined even in pain. He'd seen that look on soldiers, on dying men, on children too young to know what surrender meant. He poured himself a cup of coffee and sat beside the flames, back aching. A long time passed. The night deepened. Shadows thickened in the corners. She woke once, just before dawn, eyes fluttering open to find him still there. "Why?" she whispered. Voice cracked, barely audible. He didn't answer. Not right away. Instead, he looked out the window, where the horizon was just beginning to blush. In the stillness between them, a thought formed, not a clear one, but enough. Enough to know he couldn't take her back. Couldn't leave her to die. He turned back to her and said the only thing that felt true. Because somebody should have done better. She stared at him. He didn't know if she understood. But she didn't close her eyes again. Not yet. And outside, on the edge of the world, 50 miles away, or maybe closer, men were waking. Saddling up. Whispering names. Preparing rope. The fire crackled. The girl watched the flames. He finished his coffee, then poured her a cup. The girl wouldn't speak for 2 more days. She watched him instead, watched how he moved, how he fed the horses before himself, how he stepped around the warped floorboard near the stove without looking. Her eyes were always sharp, always following. Like a wild thing pretending to sleep, but ready to bolt at the twitch of a shadow. He didn't press her. He figured words would come when she decided the wind was safe. He tended to the ranch like usual, though something inside him shifted with each passing hour. She ate only what he left by the fire, cornbread, beans, boiled potatoes, cut small, and never while he sat nearby. He learned to leave food and walk out to the field. In silence, a rhythm grew, a fragile, wordless peace. On the 3rd morning, he came in from mending the fence to find her standing, just barely, legs trembling like a colt on its first run. She held the tin cup in both hands, sipping water slow, not looking at him. The bandage on her wrist had soaked through. He crossed the room with the spare cloth, expecting her to flinch. She didn't. When he reached for her arm, she let him unwrap it. The flesh was scab black around the edges. The brand still screamed. "Didn't do this for stealing," she said, voice dry as sun-baked dirt. He paused. "They said I stole a horse. I didn't." He didn't answer, just looked at her. She turned her face away. "It was my father's horse. Took it back. After they shot him." The words landed like stones in a dry well. She sat down slow, bones creaking beneath skin too tight. "They caught me. Said I was a raider. One of the stragglers. Said I was a reminder of trouble." His jaw flexed. He wrung the bloody cloth in his hands, then set it in the wash basin. "Who branded you?" She didn't answer at first. Then, white men. Same ones who killed him. Same ones who burned the others. His hands stilled. "They called me a thief, but I was just taking back what was ours." He trained that horse since it was a foal. His saddle was Apache. They said it was theirs now. Like everything else. Silence followed. Only the fire hissed. He stirred the coals with the poker, watching them glow. He thought of old orders. Old victories. The way they rode through villages and called it duty. "You tell anyone else that story?" She shook her head. "Then it dies with me," he said, without looking up. "Ain't nobody else gonna hear it unless you want them to." She didn't respond. But she didn't leave the chair either. That night, as the wind rose, he heard distant hoofbeats echo across the flat dark. Not close. Not yet. But enough to rouse a chill deep in his spine. The next morning, he rode into town for supplies, flour, tobacco, clean cloth, and found it humming low with something ugly. A knot of men outside the saloon muttered over a bounty flyer tacked to the wall. He didn't walk over. Didn't need to. He'd seen enough paper nailed to wood in his life to know the shape of justice when it came sharpened and folded. But the barkeep noticed him. "Quiet out on your end of the world," the man called out, drying a glass that didn't need drying. He grunted. "Quiet suits me." The barkeep leaned closer. "They say the Apache girl that burned Coulter's ranch didn't die like they thought. Say she's still out there. Half dead, half witch. Took 2 of his horses, killed his brother. She do all that by herself. They say she's got help." His jaw tensed. "From who?" The barkeep grinned, without warmth. "That's the mystery, ain't it? Someone's hiding her. Lot of money on her head now. 50 riders, maybe more, headed out next week to sweep the back valleys. Find her and the man who's feeding her." The words hit like a hammer wrapped in silk. He didn't buy tobacco. Didn't speak another word. Just turned and rode home, slow at first, then faster, until the wind screamed past him and the prairie grass looked like fire in the afternoon light. When he reached the cabin, she was gone. The cot was still warm, but the door hung open and her tracks led out past the coop and toward the draw. She hadn't gone far. He found her crouched beneath the oak tree by the creek, rifle in hand. His rifle. She had it pointed low, not at him, but not away either. "You heard," he said. She didn't nod. Didn't move. He stepped forward and sat on a stump, hands open. "You run now, they'll catch you tired. They'll hang you before they ask your name. I didn't ask for saving. I didn't offer it. I just didn't let you die." She studied him, her face unreadable. Then slowly, carefully, she lowered the rifle. "You want to leave?" he asked. "You can. But if you stay, things are going to get hard." She looked away, eyes on the water. "They already are." They walked back together. No one spoke. The sun dropped low behind them, long shadows stretching like fingers trying to hold the light a little longer. That evening, he found her stitching the bandage tighter on her wrist, her fingers steady. She asked where he kept the spare bullets. He told her. The line between guest and ghost had been crossed. Later that night, he burned the bounty flyer he'd taken from town. He didn't mean to. He told himself he'd just wanted to see the face they'd drawn. But as the fire licked the paper, he felt something inside him go quiet. She watched it burn, then said, "You don't owe me." He nodded. "I know." She stared into the flames, eyes dark and wide. "But now they'll come for you too." He poked at the coals. "Let em try." She didn't thank him. But in the morning, when he went out to feed the horses, he found the fence mended where it had sagged for weeks. Wire pulled tight. Posts reset. She'd worked in the night, silent and thorough. Inside, the fire had died out, but a cup of coffee steamed by his chair. Strong, bitter, and hot. She wasn't gone. Not yet. And somewhere beyond the ridgeline, 50 men were saddling up with rope and fire, riding not for justice, but for silence. The days that followed fell into a rhythm, uneasy, but real. She rose before dawn and fed the chickens. He hauled water from a spring. By late afternoon, they worked together in silence, mending the barn roof, patching saddle straps, cutting kindling. She never asked to stay, and he never said she could. But neither of them left. Sometimes that was enough. He learned small things. She could track better than he could, moved through brush like a breeze, left no sound behind. She carved shapes into wood when she thought he wasn't looking, mountains, stars, a lone figure beneath a tree. She flinched at thunder, hated the smell of bacon, slept with her boots on. But she laughed once, just once. A short bark of surprise when one of the goats kicked over his coffee pot, splattering bitter grounds across his boots. The sound startled him more than the spill. It came out raw and real, like something broken had clicked back into place, just for a second. She caught herself after, turned away. But he saw it. That night, as wind rustled the cottonwoods, he poured 2 cups of coffee and slid one across the table toward her. She accepted it without a word. Outside, coyotes howled somewhere near the ridge. Neither of them looked up. "I need to take you somewhere," he said finally. "Someone I trust. She might be able to help." She didn't ask who. Just sipped the coffee, eyes fixed on the fire. They left at first light, packing light and riding fast. He led them through the cut valley, away from a road. The girl rode her mare like she was part of the saddle, head low, hands still, body loose in the hips. She didn't speak, but her eyes were sharper than ever. Every hawk shadow, every broken twig, she saw it. The healer lived in a stone house tucked between two cliffs, half hung with vines and bones. Chickens ran wild in the yard. An old mutt barked once, then recognized the rider and slunk off to sleep beneath the porch. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, apron streaked with ash and herbs. Her face was sunburnt and sharp, with streaks of gray in her black braid. A Comanche edge to her cheekbones, a Mexican twist to her vowels. The sort of woman who knew where every scar on your body had come from, whether you admitted it or not. "You finally bring me trouble," she asked him, eyes flicking from his face to the girl behind. "Not mine to keep," he said. She stepped aside. "Then bring it in." Inside, the walls were lined with dried plants, jars full of dark shapes. Old bones hung with red string. The healer looked the girl up and down, then pointed to a stool by the fire. "Sit." The girl didn't move. "She's all right," he said. "You trust me, trust her." After a moment, the girl stepped forward. "Saturday." The healer unwrapped her wrist slowly, winced. "This ain't just a brand," she said. "It's a message. You carry it long enough, it becomes a sentence." The girl didn't flinch. "Who marked you?" "Men from Coulter's ranch," she said, low. "Said I stole. But I saw it. I saw who really shot his brother." The healer looked up. Her gaze sharpened. "Wasn't you." The girl shook her head. "Was his own men. Drunk. Stupid. He fell off his horse, and they panicked. And they blamed you." "Because I was there." The room went still. Even the fire seemed to listen. "She's the last witness," the rancher said. "They don't want justice. They want silence." The healer nodded slowly, then turned to her shelves and began to gather things: tinctures, ointments, cloth. "This mark, this lie, they carved it into you. But we can burn a truth back into it." She smeared something thick and black over the wound. The girl winced, but didn't cry out. "That pain you feel now," the healer said softly, "that's not punishment. That's memory finding its place." They stayed the night in the loft above the healer's stables. Rain came in heavy, tapping on the tin roof like fingernails. The girl slept close to the saddle, curled tight. He lay awake, listening. "You still carry the old war," the healer told him before he left her door. "I tried to bury it," he said. "Ghosts don't stay buried." They rode back at dawn. The ranch was quiet when they returned, too quiet. The chickens hadn't been fed. A rope hung from a porch post, coiled loose, like someone had meant to send a message, but changed their mind at the last minute. He checked the house. Nothing taken. Nothing moved. But something had changed. That night, a boy from town rode up under the moonlight, wild-eyed and out of breath. He didn't dismount, just tossed a bundle onto the dirt and turned back toward the ridge. Inside the bundle, a fresh poster. A new bounty. Bigger this time. Names scratched into the margins. Anyone offering harbor or aid. 50 men. Rifles. Rope. They had 2 days, maybe less. She held the poster without a word. The firelight caught the ink, made the letters dance. Her face was unreadable. "You want to run?" he asked. "No." "You sure?" "I'm tired of running." He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. The next morning, they began fortifying the ranch. Fences sharpened, windows boarded, traps set beyond the trees. He taught her how to reload faster, how to aim under pressure. She listened, learned fast, faster than most men he trained. On the second night, as they sharpened blades by lantern light, she looked up. "Why help me?" she asked. "You could ride. Be gone by now." He took his time answering. "Because once I looked the other way," he said. "Because I thought I was just following orders." And the next morning, there were children under the ash. I lived. They didn't. Her eyes stayed on his, hard and full of storm. Someone should have done something different. The silence that followed felt sacred. She stood and walked outside. The wind had died. The stars were sharp and bright, like someone had carved them into the sky with a knife. He followed her. They stood there, side by side, not touching, not speaking. Then, softly, she said, "Let them come." And far out on the plain, barely more than a whisper on the wind, The sound of horses drifted in like thunder waiting to wake the earth. Dawn came slow, dragging pale light over the horizon like a weary hand across tired eyes. The ranch sat hushed, heavy with waiting. Smoke drifted lazy from the chimney, but there was no warmth in it. Inside, the girl loaded bullets into a canvas sack, fingers swift and steady. She moved like someone who'd already decided how she would die, calm, quiet, not running anymore. The man stood at the window, his rifle propped beside him. He watched the rise between the hills where dust now lifted in the distance, a low smudge against the soft pink sky. They were coming, men on horses, maybe 50, maybe more. He couldn't count them all yet, but he didn't need to. He could feel the storm of them. He'd felt it before. In the war. In the days when orders came with clean gloves and left behind ashes and bone. He turned to her. "You don't need to be here for this." She looked up from her work. "I am here." He said nothing. What else was there to say? They'd crossed that invisible line days ago, past reason, past escape. This wasn't about survival now. This was about truth. About not letting lies write the ending. They took their positions. He at the gate, where the narrow trail funneled men into range. She on the second-floor balcony, crouched behind an overturned table, rifle laid out, eyes sharp beneath her brow. They didn't speak. The silence between them was full enough. The first riders came over the ridge like shadows given shape. Dust curled around them, cloaking their faces. But he knew the man at the front by posture alone, tall, arrogant, wrapped in a black duster that flapped like a preacher's robe in the wind. The cattleman, Coulter. He raised a hand. The horses slowed. The rancher stepped forward, rifle loose in his grip. His voice, when it came, carried like thunder rolling through canyon walls. "She's not yours." Coulter spat. "She's wanted for murder, for theft, for starting a war." "No," the rancher said. "You started that war. And you killed your own kin trying to hide it." There was a pause, just long enough for the lie to tremble. Then Coulter's voice rose. "Bring me the girl, or we'll burn you both." The rancher shifted his stance, steady and still. "Then come try." For a moment, no one moved. The sun lifted an inch higher. A breeze cut through the silence. Then a shot cracked the morning. Not his. A boy in the back, too eager, too scared, fired early. The bullet struck wood near the gate, and the world exploded into noise. Gunfire split the air. Horses screamed. Dust turned to smoke. He dropped the first man from his saddle clean, then ducked back behind the post as rounds slammed into the fence. She fired from above, controlled and lethal. 2 more down before they reached the gate. The posse scattered, trying to flank, but the traps he'd set snapped like teeth. 1 man down with a spike in his thigh, another tangled in barbed wire they hadn't seen under the brush. The battle turned brutal. Close range. Ash and splinters and blood. The rancher moved like a ghost with weight, ducking between beams, reloading in seconds, never wasting a bullet. He was bleeding from the shoulder by the time they reached the barn, but still upright. She saw the cattleman himself finally push through the fray, pistol raised, shouting names she didn't recognize. Orders fell flat. His men were dying, and truth had begun to slip through the cracks of their story. She lined up the shot, then hesitated. Killing him would end it, but it wouldn't prove anything. Wouldn't erase the brand from her wrist. Wouldn't give the dead their names back. She adjusted her aim. Fired. The bullet shattered the rifle of the man beside Coulter, knocked him from his horse. Coulter wheeled, eyes searching. He saw her then, just a girl, covered in dust and smoke, holding her ground like stone. He raised his pistol. Then another gunshot rang out. Coulter jerked, stumbled, and fell from the saddle. Not from her bullet. One of his own men had turned. It was the boy who'd fired first, the one too eager, now pale and shaking. He dropped his gun like it burned him. "I saw it," the boy shouted. "She didn't kill your brother. You did." Silence fell, sudden and full of thunder. The rest of the posse faltered. Some dropped their weapons. Others turned their horses and fled, hooves pounding like a fast-coming storm that changed its mind. The cattleman didn't move. Blood pooled under him. His story ended without a word. The battle was over. The ranch was ruined, half-burned, fence posts shattered, the barn black with smoke. Bodies lay scattered like fallen branches. But they were still standing. He leaned against the porch beam, blood seeping through his shirt. She came to him slow, boots crunching over broken glass and gravel. Her face was pale, but her eyes held steady. "You all right?" she asked. He nodded. "You?" She looked over the field, where the boy sat with his head in his hands, and the others drifted away like mist. "I will be." He winced as he sat, the pain in his side sharp and deep. She crouched beside him, tore a strip from her sleeve, and pressed it to the wound. "I'm sorry," he said, breath ragged. "For what?" "For what we let happen. Back then. All of it." She didn't answer right away, just tied the cloth tighter, then sat beside him, shoulder to shoulder, watching the sun begin to climb. Smoke still curled from the rafters, but the wind had shifted. Later, when the crows came circling low, she built a fire and burned the brand she'd been marked with. The iron hissed in the coals, then cracked in two. She watched it break, then turned away, her face calm and unreadable. That night, they buried the dead, hers, his, and theirs. And in the quiet that followed, with the stars thick overhead, she said softly, "You think they'll come again?" He didn't lie. "Maybe, but not like before." She nodded. Then she stood, lifted her pack, and walked to the edge of the ranch. He watched her go until she vanished into the dark, her silhouette framed in silver moonlight, like a ghost finally given a name. The wind rustled the grass. The land exhaled. And for the first time in years, he closed his eyes and let sleep take him, not as a soldier, not as a coward, but as a man who'd finally chosen to stay and do right, even if it came too late.